Hello everybody and welcome to the next episode of the 3D platformer tutorial. So on this episode we're going to actually be cleaning up some of our code and also doing tiny bit more on the jumping and also implementation of our spawn points. So let's hop to it and get started. So the first thing we actually want to do is let's clean up our hierarchy. So I'm going to add a few new things. First thing that I'm going to add is a game manager. Now this one will manage our overall game. It will manage everything to do with things that aren't to do with players, enemies, or anything like that. This will manage game overs, it'll manage audio, etc, etc. So what we want to do now is we want to grab everything and put it inside of the game manager. Next thing that we want to do is add a new game object and call this environment. And let's grab all of the cubes and put them in there. And make sure that's also in the game manager. Next thing that we want to do is we want to go to our spawn points and we want to add a nice box collider. And this what this will do is it'll tell the system when we've advanced and gotten to a new spawn point, so that our old spawn point can be disabled and this spawn point can take over. So let's set this up. What I want to do is I want to get the box to be about right. So the way I've set it is 1.2 there, 1.1, and I'm going to have this at 0.3. So that gives us a nice box. I'm going to quickly copy this component. I'm going to paste that directly into this one. So that is our spawn points done. Actually, one last thing, we want to add a new tag called spawn point. Let's add those to our spawn points. So that is about that's about right. If you want, you can actually get the camera to be centered on the player by just resetting the transform. However, I'm actually quite liking it where it is for now. I might change that in just a little while. Now, let's get into the code. I'm not going to do the same as the last two episodes. The reason why is because in this one there is a lot of code that I want to add, and I want to sort of make sure you guys know exactly what goes where. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to want to add is a public int, and this is going to be jumps. The reason why we're doing this is this is going to be our jump counter. What I want to do is currently, if we actually play the game, we'll find that it's playing it's all right, but it's one last thing is we want to actually make those box colliders a trigger. But we can see it's all right. However, if we go under here, we can actually float. We don't want that. So we're going to fix that. But let's just get our box colliders and make those triggers. Right, let's get back to the code. So we've added our jumps. The next thing we want to go do is we want to go down to our jump, and here we're going to want to add a few little bits and bobs. So let's add some curly brackets here, and let's add jumps equals 0 because we want to reset the amount of jumps as soon as the player actually becomes grounded. Next, we want to add in here, let's put this in brackets because that it makes the code more clearer for the system to read. And we want, if the jumps goes over 2, then we want this to happen. So basically, if the player is grounded or jumps is still lower than 2, that enables us to that still enables us to jump. So that's that one. Let's go over to the fixed update, and within the jump if statement, we're going to want to add if jumps is still under 2, then let's open brackets, we want in the middle here jumps plus equals 1. Let's just fix that. So what's happening here is the jumps, if it's still under 2, it's going to enable us to jump with the impulse, and the amount of jumps that we've done is plus 1. So if we've jumped 2 times, this doesn't happen. Now, what we want to do while we're here is we want to start our box colliders, and we want to actually enable us to spawn in another location. So let's go and add a void on trigger ender, and here we're going to want to add an if statement, if other dot tag. So this is the tag of the object that we are entering is equal to spawn point, and this is where we will want all of our spawning code to be. Okay. Right, so we're going to want to make a few more scripts now. Now, these next scripts are going to be under the game manager, and we're going to name one called DataManager. Now, this is going to hold all of our actual positioning and the spawn locations. And what this will also do is it'll be a static script, so it will be able to actually go from scene to scene without resetting any data. Let's also go ahead and add another one, which is called the game controller. let's move you up here and let's open them. So in the game controller, we want to add a few more things. Let's get rid of this. Right, so here we're going to want to add a few variables. Let's add the header. And this one is where all of our spawn settings are going to be. Alright, so here we're going to want a public bool and enabled alt spawning. This one is going to be used as a sort of enabling tool as to basically allow us to change where the player can spawn. We're going to want to add a public int. This is going to be the spawn point. And we're going to set this to 1 so that the player actually spawns at spawn point 1. Now we're going to want to add a private list, and it's going to be a string, and locations, that's what we're going to call it. It's going to be new list string, and there we go. Plus maybe a game object actually. So let's make a header in case we ever want to actually make this public. Game objects. And this one is going to be a private game object called player. Right, now that we have all of that, let's void start. And this one is going to be, let's sort out our player first by putting player trans equals transform dot find player. Let's put that in brackets. Dot game object. So that's going to automatically find our player for us. Next, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually find our spawn points within the hierarchy straight away. So let's go through a for each statement. Int I equals 0, and if I is below this dot transform dot find what was it? It was find spawn points. That's what it was. You got to make sure that you get all of these caps. It is very case sensitive. All right, and then it's going to be child count, and then it's going to be I plus plus. And for this one, locations dot add this dot transform dot find spawn points dot get child I dot name. I'm thinking it's that. All right, let's add a semicolon there. So that's going to go through all of our all of our nice little, I forgot a bracket there. So that's going to go through all of our hierarchy and pick out all of the spawn points for us. Now this is the enable part. So if enabled alt spawning, so if enabled alt spawning, let's put code here, DataManager code here. All right, let's move on. Player.transform .position, and this one is all right, that's all we're going to want for the start. Next, we're going to actually start our update. And actually, I don't think there is anything in our update just yet, because we need to get our DataManager up to scratch yet first. So, so yeah. Actually, let's just pick out that one. Right. So we've got our update, and let's actually start our DataManager, because we need a few things from the DataManager in order for us to progress further. So let's start now. So first thing we're going to want is a few private variables. Static spawn point. This one is going to equal our spawn point 1. I think that's what it was called. Let's check that out. Spawn point 1. Yep. Spawn point 1 in brackets. Alright. Next, we're going to want another private variable. Static transform player. We're going to want this one, player position. This one's going to hold all of our player position, and let's make that null for now. Right. This one needs a string. Right. So let's go further down and let's add our get sets. So we're going to want to add a public static string, and this one's going to be called spawn location. And let's add our first get, and down here set. So the get is going to return a spawn point, and you are going to spawn point is equal to value. So basically this will, whenever we call this function, it will return the current spawn point. And this one, if we ever call this function with an intending to change the value, it will set the spawn point to whatever we want. Okay, let's copy that. Let's copy the whole thing and paste it. So we're going to want to change this to transform. We're going to want to delete this and call it players spawn, I don't know, position. Yeah. And there we go. So this one, what we want to do is grab that position and just paste that in there. All right, that is it for the data manager. We don't need to touch the data manager anymore. What we want to go back to is the player controller, and we're going to want to actually change the values within the data manager to call back in our game controller. So let's get started. This one is going to need a data manager dot player spawn position is equal other dot position. Oh no, other dot transform. And gonna need another data manager. This one's gonna find our spawn location, and it's going to be other dot name. And that is our player controller finished. Next, we're going to want to go back to our update function. Not the update function just yet. Let's actually change the enabled alt spawning. So let's delete all this and let's get started. So first we're going to want to add another data manager, and we want the spawn location equals locations spawn point -1. The reason why I've put a -1 is because whenever we choose to have that will be spawn point 0. You've got to remember the way lists work is they go 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next, we're going to want to actually add spawning. So transform dot position equals this dot transform. Actually, we don't need that. Dot find spawn points. And then we're going to want, maybe we do need a transform. And find data manager dot spawn location, because we've changed it to the spawn position that we wanted. So now we just need to call that again, and bada bing bada boom, everything should be all right. I don't know whether I should put a player rotation or not, because it is orthographic and it's a 3D 2D type of game, but I might as well. So let's put player dot transform dot rotation is equal this. Let's just copy down that crap and put that there. Change that to rotation. All right, that is it. However, for debugging purposes, I want to add one last little thing, which could help us quite a lot, actually. So it's going to be private string. Actually, let's make that a public string, and let's call this spawn location, so that we actually know when the spawn location has actually changed, which it should change when we actually go into Box Glider. Right. Let's use our update. And spawn location is equal to, we're just going to put it as the DataManager dot spawn location. And that is that. I think that should work. Yeah, it definitely should work. I mean, fairly confident. And let's have a look at this. Well, jumping still works. And we're jumping twice. And we're not floating, I don't think. That's awesome. Pretty cool. Let's check out our spawn points. And we're going to want to see that here. So we're going up. So it should change to spawn point 2 any second. Great, that's fantastic. That always makes me happy. Alright, let's try our dev spawning. So we're going to want to spawn directly at spawn point 2. Awesome. Everything works. So there you have it, guys. I will add a few more tooltips here, and they will be available on my GitHub. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment, give a thumbs up if you like it, give a thumbs down if you don't. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.